topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask Good Questions podcast, broadcasting live every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time on W4CY Radio at W4CY.com. This week and every week, we will reach for a higher purpose in money and life, as well as a focus on health and wellness. Now, let's join your host, Benita Bell-Andersen, as together we start with Asking Good Questions.
Welcome to the Ask Good Questions podcast. I am Benita Bell-Andersen, your host, and today we have a fabulous topic with a fabulous financial advisor. She's an advisor on the other side of the country from where I am, and she is very much into something she calls bucket list planning. We're going to invite her to the podcast stage now.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Let me tell people a little bit about you. She's tried careers in Hollywood. Were you trying to be an actress? Is that what you were doing?
No, I was actually on the talent agent side. So no acting for me.
Okay. Well, she tried that in Hollywood, education, and then insurance. She found her true calling in financial advice and planning, specifically for female professionals and their families. So she virtually does a lot. You do most of your appointments virtually?
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, all of them. Yeah.
Well, she focuses on something she calls bucket list planning, which we will get into. And she guides her clients to leverage their dollars to love the lifestyle they love now. With the heart of a servant and the mind of a teacher, she's always available to help you when you need her most, especially when you don't think you need her. So she has a unique ability to take complicated concepts and make them simpler and easy to understand. She was the past president of the Mission Viejo Chamber of Commerce. She is situated in California. She is also an avid theater goer, as I am. Love to go into the theater. She also enjoys trail running, cooking, reading, traveling, food, kickboxing, spin classes, and she's also reteaching herself how to play the piano, which is something I should do. Haven't done that. So, Lisa, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you again for having me.
Yeah. So we talked about how you tried those different careers, and what finally made you feel like this was your calling?
I think I grew up in LA. So Hollywood was in my backyard and I loved old movies and stuff. So that felt like a natural transition after college. And I did it for a couple of years. There was nothing wrong with it. I just didn't feel like I was fulfilling my purpose. Mm-hmm. And I was getting my boss's car washed for the fourth time that week, and which is fine. He likes a clean car, but
that wasn't what you envisioned yourself as doing.
I know, exactly. And we didn't really have, we had cell phones, but we didn't have smartphones at that point. So yeah. I was sitting there actually thinking versus doing anything else. And I just started thinking about, what was I doing with my life and what did I want at the end of the day? And I just wanted to help people and just know that I was helping as many people as possible. And while you can do that somewhat in Hollywood, it's so corporate and everything, it's just not the same thing. And I wasn't a filmmaker, so it wasn't going to be that way of it. So I just moved into the complete opposite, which was teaching. And I taught elementary school for many years. And from there, again, I was just getting dissatisfied with the amount of impact I was having with the kids because you have 1 year.
Yeah.
And yes, you can help them in some respects, but you just don't have the lasting impact I wanted. So I was on monster.com. It shows how long ago that was. I don't even know if that's still around. And they kept asking for teachers in this industry, especially in the insurance side of things. And I didn't quite understand why. I didn't have a financial background, but I applied and I got called by almost every major insurance company out there. But I understood why, because like it was in the intro, I know how to explain things in a way that is easy for people. I didn't grow up having a financial background or anything like that. So I understand that financial language is very confusing and overwhelming. And so I don't use it. I still don't use it. And so, yeah, I think that's kind of what has gotten me staying in this industry is don't do as much insurance anymore, mainly do a lot of financial plans and, that kind of stuff, but and investing and those kind of things. But I do like the impact I have on clients' lives and that ongoing impact that I can help them really get to financial freedom. That's pretty much what everybody wants is retirement, financial freedom, financial independence, whatever you want to call it. It's just, I want to do what I want to do when I want to do it without the worry of money.
Yeah. You made me think about myself like 25 plus years ago when I was considering going into the industry, and it was the same thing. Basically what I was told was they really need women in this industry because sometimes the guys fell short, and women have like a nurturing way of being. And so, I understand. I totally get what you're saying. Mm-hmm. So you work especially with women and their families. So did you notice anything that they would say to you where they're missing something from traditional financial planning?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that probably I was more of a draw to women, as you noted, there's not that many women in this industry, really. I think we're still like 25% women in the financial world. It's crazy to me. But so I think they're drawn to us just because we're women and we're nurturing women too. So that helps because this is an area they don't feel comfortable with. I think that women in general feel like that they are quote unquote dumb in this area because we just don't get that education. We don't get it in school, but also women don't sit around and talk about, how's your 401k doing? Like we don't do that. That's not part of our culture. And men do tend to do stuff like that more. So they do have a little bit of a leg up on us on that. So, mom didn't sit us down to talk about finances most of the time, Mm-hmm. And so I think a lot of times women feel very unsure of themselves. And I would say most of them have done fairly well of putting, certain things in place and guardrails and all that stuff, but they don't feel confident in what they've done. They assume that there's got to be something huge that they're missing. And I think also some of that confidence comes in, I do often get brought into families, meaning, husband and wives majority, but, just situations where the woman of the relationship brings me in because they don't know how to talk to their spouse about money. Maybe he's been handling it, maybe she's been handling it, but they don't know how to have that language together. And I do feel like that's one of the unintended, benefits of doing this is I get to help people learn how to talk about money with their significant others, which I think is really nice because I think it's freeing for one. Yeah. So that's kind of the biggest thing that I hear is women just feel very unconfident in their abilities to do it.
Where do you think your One Vision retirement, what does that really mean to you, and how did that shape, how you went forward with this? Yeah.
So, we took it as inspiration from a Queen song, but So, but, I would say that a lot of times people have this idea. I feel like people think of retirement as almost a social construct that we've put together in our minds. Like this is how it's supposed to be in retirement. And it's not truly what they want. It's not their vision. So my business partner, Chris, and I decided that we were going to do One Vision, which is the client's vision. It's not about what I want for a client. Or, there's basics, as you want to have an emergency fund, and you like those are things that, yes, I would say the majority of people should have. But when it comes to the mix of, what kind of investing and where risk and all, and when you want to retire and when you need to retire, all that stuff, that's all personal. And people don't think of it that way. They think of it as kind of a general rules that everybody should follow. And that's not really true. So that was the catalyst, really, is that it's one vision, it's the client's vision.
Well, I can kind of guess what bucket list planning means, but why don't you tell me?
Yes.
Where did bucket list planning come from?
Yeah. So we always say in our industry, we always borrow really good ideas from other people, which is good. It's it's a compliment to them. So I was listening to a podcast with, from advisors for advisors, kind of ideas to think about. And one of the gentlemen on there was talking about how he's taken his client experiences, like, those dinners, those appreciation dinners and stuff, and stepped it up by having them join him on his bucket list things. So, maybe it was bourbon tasting, or it was, it's not like trips to Italy, but, it's, little things like that. And then he started to incorporate some of clients' bucket list items in there for his yearly client experiences. And they've really enjoyed that. And I thought, that's really interesting, bucket list planning. Let me kind of think about that more. And I realized, throughout the year of like really ruminating and on thinking about it, that we have this list of things that we want to do. And we say, we'll wait till retirement to do it. That is dangerous.
My folks were like that. And I know where you're going.
Exactly. And to me, that's dangerous. It doesn't mean you're not going to have fun stuff to do, financial freedom or retirement. It's really about, you've got to figure out who you are and what your time away from work is really going to look like. So many people are so embedded in their careers.
Yeah.
You meet somebody at a party and they say, tell me about yourself. And you say, I'm a financial advisor. That's not really who I am. I mean, that's what I do for a living. I enjoy it. It's a little different when you're a business owner, but it's not who I am. And so you do have to figure out who you are outside of your career. And a lot of people can't do that. And so I find that the bucket list planning does that one task, which is help people figure out who they are in retirement, in financial freedom, outside of work, because that is a mental game that can go very bad. If people don't know who they are outside of work, they can get depressed. It just can be really, really horrible. But the other thing that I thought was, how do we use bucket list planning to really motivate people to keep going? Because the biggest issue, and maybe you experience this too, was, retirement is 25 years from now. How do I keep somebody motivated for 25 years to continue moving forward on that? We've gotten a shorter and shorter attention span with iPhones and all that stuff, even YouTube. I was reading YouTube reels. The shorter the reel, the better it's doing now. It's just crazy the attention span we have.
I've learned that through podcasting. Yeah.
Oh yeah, exactly. And so now I'm asking somebody to think of their life in 30 years. Well, our automatic thing is, I won't worry about it till 10 years out. Maybe it's 5 years. And then I'm sitting there with somebody who is at 55, exhausted, burnt out, done kind of the bare minimum that they needed to do. And I'm having to tell them, well, to get to this, you're going to have to save this, or you're going to have to do this, or you're going to have to give up this. I hate that. I mean, I'll tell people that, but I hate doing that. So I'd rather work with maybe a 35-year-old or 40-year-old who has plenty of time to get to retirement.
But impact on.
Exactly. And we basically put together their bucket list item, and we change it as they accomplish it alongside their long-term planning. So let's say it's a trip to Italy. When they save for their financial freedom or retirement, they also are saving to their trip to Italy, and they don't get to save to their trip to Italy if they don't do their other stuff. And if they can't save as much that month, that's fine, but it's still proportional. Yeah. So it kind of keeps people going And there's something fun that they have in their sights much sooner than 25 years from now.
So the other thing that kind of goes along with this is that idea that you say, love the life they love now. And maybe people will understand. Talk about that a little bit more, because it kind of goes along with this.
Yeah, exactly. So again, you probably experienced this too. I built my whole business networking, and there was always the strict savers that won't even spend $5 to go to the, well, I was going to say movies, but that's not really $5 anymore, but it just shows my mindset of movies. But $5 to do something versus, somebody who's like, YOLO, you only live once. I don't need to save. I'm just going to live my life. And it seems to be these two extremes. There is a nice middle that people can find. And that means enjoying your life, if you like nice wines, don't, budget yourself to the point that you're still, drinking $2 Chuck. And I guess it's $3 Chuck now. And then, then you're saving it up for retirement. Enjoy some niceties, enjoy some stuff. You've got to enjoy your life now. And again, it's part of that mindset of, who are you outside of career? Who are you? What do you want? What is your motivation, your passion, your values? I do a lot of value work with clients, because I don't think people know what their true values are. It helps me with investing a lot, because, they can come to me and say, well, what about this or what about that? I go, does that align with your values? Let's take a look. And half the time they talk themselves out of making a silly mistake for themselves. So it's really that mindset of you've got to experience your life now and find that balance more than anything.
Well, with keeping, confidentiality and not naming any names, do you have any, can you think of any clients who had a bucket list dream that you saw come true because they were following your advice?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've had clients, I'll talk in generalities, as you know, but I've had clients who didn't think, I started in 2010. That tells you the situation of where,
enough to be able to have started that long ago.
Yeah, exactly. And 2008 and 2009 had just happened. Everybody was just, decimated from that point. What a time to start in the industry, right? But people were really still licking their wounds. And I hate to say it, there's still people who are doing that. And so I had people that, I started meeting with that had lost their homes, had lost their careers, wanted to buy another house, and have been able to buy another house. And I've had a couple that have been able to pay off their homes. I've had people who, and to me, that's a bucket list thing for a lot of people. I've had people being able to take their first European trips. I was talking about this on one of my videos, that I've had people who say, look, at international travel, I don't want to do that. I want to go see every national forest out there, national parks out there. And they've ticked off a bunch of them. So there's a lot of different things. I've actually a couple of them that have actually gotten their kitchen remodeled. They've been wanting to do it, old 1960s kitchen, and they finally to get it remodeled. It doesn't have to be just fun stuff, but she loves cooking, so it was perfect for her. So, there's lots of different things that people can do. I'll give you a very distinct example, which is my husband. My husband, he always loved Corvettes. He loves Corvettes, and they're expensive. They're like $100 grand. It's insane to me. And I just know him, and I knew that he would never take the time or take the money out to spend on something like that unless we saved for that. So he has his Corvette fund, and we have enough to buy a Corvette. He's now decided he doesn't want a Corvette anymore, but that's the joy of being able to.
Well, but now,
now you can do something else with it.
Maybe I want to do something else. Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, because we started that 5-6 years ago. So therefore, things change. People change. People, now he thinks that's ridiculous. You can't even take it to Costco to get water. So why would he get it? That's what his thought process was. So I don't know. It just didn't matter to him 5 years ago.
Do you think there's any myths about I mean, what I'm thinking of is like people allowing themselves to start living their dreams. I mean, how do you see that? Can you tell when somebody's like, no, I can't, I can't. They're telling themselves they can't, and you're trying to turn themselves around.
Yeah, I have seen that happen a lot. That's that very strict budgeting, or in their minds. It's the funny thing is half the time those people are not actually saving very much, but in their minds they're telling themselves they can't do something
Yeah.
because that's quote unquote bad behavior, right? You can't do something because that's bad financial behavior. And I think the biggest thing that has to happen is they have to choose a bucket list item that is very close. So something within like a 6-month, 1-year period that we can get to. And then they can experience that, because then I start saying, when are we going to do this? Are you still going to do it? And they probably haven't changed their mind, like my husband, the Corvette, in a 6-month period. So then, I can get them to kind of see what this looks like. And they almost have a relief on their face when they can say, oh, you mean I can take that trip to Disneyland with my kids without going in financial debt, which I was reading articles, it's like 40% of people go into financial debt going to Disneyland or Disney. It's just crazy. It's so expensive there. So
it's crazy when you think about, you kind of have this power to say, yes, you can, or no, you can't.
Exactly.
Weird.
Exactly. It's fun. It's nice to nag people for good things that they can do for themselves rather than saving.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, so let's talk about one thing that I have taught people for years is about having a purpose for money, and which really should be their purpose for life, right?
Yes.
So why do you have people get clear on their why before you ever talk about dollars?
Yeah. So we go through a very in-depth intro call. So it's not, they've become a client at this point. And so we go through a very in-depth discussion about money memories. I'm sure you've done this too, where you ask, what's your earliest money memory? That tends to break the seal very quickly. I'm kind of surprised how fast that one question can kind of get people open, because I do give them a warning and say, I'm going to ask about this. I don't put them on the spot. But, we go into that. Like I said, I take them through a values exercise so that they understand their values on things. And then I do have them, for those who will listen to me, write goals down. And usually I try to get them to write 1 or 2 goals down just so we can start. And most of the time it's retirement at such and such an age. And then the other is, something smaller, like a bucket list item that we can utilize. But I think writing it down and actually discussing with somebody really kind of gets their values in place. I think the problem is we have too much, it's too wide, right? When we think about retirement, the question that always happens, what am I going to do with my time when I retire? That's the biggest thing that people, actually the biggest question is, am I going to outlive my money? But that's the other question, is what am I going to do with all this time?
Yeah.
And, I've never found anybody that can't fill it with something. There might be very expensive, some things that would be not so great for the outliving part, but people do fill their time up with things. But I do think that's that values, finding their values, going through that and going through those money memory questions really kind of get them focused on what their why is, what their meaning is with things. And then we review it once a year, and sometimes it changes.
Right. Have you ever found somebody who says to you, I've never thought about that before? Do you think people, I know that there are people that have never really gone there and done that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think it's in our nature not to want to think about this, because again, especially as women, we always think we're doing something wrong. We're spending too much. We're doing this. We're not putting in the right place. I'm not taking enough risk on my investment. Whatever that thing is always kind of, we're women. We always have that little noise in the back of our heads telling
Mhm.
us we're doing everything wrong.
Mhm.
You have to learn how to shut that off. I think as you get older, we always make that joke, as you get older, you tend to care less. I think we start to tell that little voice to be quiet after a while, and I'm not listening to you anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think that those are conversations, and those are thoughts that people have just decided that they don't want to have anymore, because it scares them, I think, more than anything.
Do you think sometimes instead of, oh, I've never thought about it, and sometimes it's just fuzzy? I mean, and I find I remember times when people, I don't know, it's just like, what happens to a financial plan if all that why behind it is fuzzy?
Oh yeah, or it's other people's. That's the thing that I've noticed, is they've kind of borrowed other people's ideas, or what the movies have told them what they're supposed to do.
Right.
So they'll say, "Oh, I want to travel," and then I start to say, "Well, where do we want to go? Where's the
Oh,
first ticket we're buying? Uh, maybe Europe. Okay, where in Europe?
yeah, it's a big place.
Yeah." And it's like they can't really get it down to a very pinpointed idea. Actually, probably the most pinpointed I've actually had before, and this isn't even a client, I was on a guest on another podcast, and she traveled all over the place. She'd go to conferences and everything for work, and she said, when I retire, I want to sit on my porch, have my beer, and grill steak. I was like, well, that is very specific. I said, do you know what kind of steak? Ribeye. It was funny. She knew exactly what she wanted. So it's probably the most pinpointed I've seen. You don't have to be that pinpointed, but I do think that people have this idea. It's funny how many people tell me they want to do international travel, but so many people don't do it because they go on one trip, and it is such a pain to travel now internationally that, I mean, it's just a pain to travel around anyhow, but
Right.
it's such a pain they don't want to do it. So these people that I thought were going to be taking 2-3 huge trips a year, taking maybe one every 3 years.
Yeah.
Like, they're doing other things. And I don't expect people to know everything before they retire, but I do think if you've never really taken an international trip, maybe don't wait to retirement to do it. Maybe let's do that beforehand so you can figure that out. But yeah, I do think that there's these kind of set, like you said, fuzzy ideas that they think retirement is supposed to be. It's the same thing with, estate planning and stuff. They think they have to leave
Yeah.
their money this way or do it this way, or this your money. You choose how you want it to be handled. You don't
Right.
have to do anything. So,
Well, let's talk a little bit now. Let's turn to like getting started, keeping yourself on track. If somebody's feeling a little overwhelmed listening to this, what would you say would be a first step to get started?
well, are we talking about just kind of starting to
Yeah,
get their financial footing
yeah,
kind of
just
thing?
trying to get figured out.
Okay. So I always say baby steps. I think I always talk about James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, because I think he does a really good job of explaining how small things can build up on themselves. And I think because we think finance is such a big thing that it's got to be these huge leaps and bounds, it doesn't. So I always say, to somebody who's overwhelmed on something and really has no idea where they are financially, when's the last time you looked at your credit card statement? And they have typically never looked at it. They just pay it and it's
Which
done.
blows me
And I
away.
said, so I think that's where you start, is
Yeah.
looking at your credit card statement and scheduling that once a week, maybe with coffee or wine or whatever beverage of choice. Make sure you're calm. Don't do it in the middle of your day where you're screaming at kids and stuff. Like,
Right.
do it when you're calm. Look at your credit card statement and start actually. Tony Robbins talks about patterns, watching patterns.
Yeah.
That's the way you succeed in life. I think that you need to start watching your spending patterns.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you yell at yourself for buying XYZ or doing this, but as you start to see the patterns, you can change them versus having zero idea, being totally unconscious when it comes to your spending and just paying it off. And then we have this idea of you spend the money you need to spend to live, and then you save. Really, it should be the opposite, right? You should save, and then you should spend what you have left over. And you can't do that effectively or without tons of pain unless you start actually looking at what you're spending your money on. And people can find, I've had people find hundreds and hundreds of dollars of subscriptions they didn't know that they were still paying.
Hey,
You know,
I was doing that today. I was canceling some subscriptions today.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think not only is it good to be conscious of what you're spending your money on, I think it gives you a sense of confidence, control. You feel like you can control your money this way. I really think that that's the first step. If you feel overwhelmed, now I know that's a scary step for a lot of people, but I hate to say it, if you can't do that, we got some other issues with other things going on. You've got to look at what you're spending your money on and just start noticing the patterns that you're having. And you end up kind of self-regulating things, like you don't go into Starbucks as much. You know, you go in and you realize that you don't even like it anymore. So you stop kind of going. And now you're using your Nescafe that you spent, I don't even know how much those things are on, and you don't use, you dust it off and you use that instead. Right. So, there's a lot of things that people do, and they can save lots of money doing that. And how nice is it to reclaim $20 back a month on something that you didn't even know you were spending it on?
Right. Yeah. One thing that I have been really big on for a long time is being 100% responsible for yourself.
Yeah.
And so that kind of goes right along with this, and just, that's kind of something I'm reviewing right now is what are the things that I'm responsible for everything that's going on that credit card statement.
Exactly.
Right? So if how are you going to help people set goals that they'll actually accomplish? I mean, you're saying they've written them down, but I know in the past I would do like business plans in January and then not look at it again for the rest of the year.
Yeah. I borrowed from Brian Tracy's idea with his goals book, and you have to write them down every single day. You do. I mean, that's the way. That's the way. I always tell people it shows commitment. If you're committed, if you're not going to commit to your own goals, like these are not things I put together. These are your goals. Yeah. So you're not going to commit to yourself. We got other issues, and people always laugh about that. But I always say you have 2 of them, just write them down every day. And I've had people who have a journal next to their bed and they write them down before they even get out of bed in the morning. Yeah. Some people don't do it, but that's what our quarterly check-ins are, to kind of remind them of what their goals are. And, I always say it's okay if you change your goals. What's not okay is to change your goals because you're afraid you're not going to hit your goal.
Yeah.
That's, so you've got to regulate that stuff. And I do think, I hate to say it, people who are probably coming to me are in a little bit of a different mindset. Like they've taken that scary step of like calling an advisor and, becoming a client of somebody.
They want the accountability that you're providing.
That's really what they do. So I don't run into it a lot where people can't somewhat self-motivate because they have already self-motivated by contacting me and anything. But if you're trying to do this on your own, I really do think that writing it down every day really helps, because the same thing with the business plans. Same thing. I don't love business plans. But I do have goals that I write down every day. That's the only thing that I do. So.
Right. Well, you talk about financial perfectionism. So what is that, and how can that hold somebody back?
Right. So financial perfectionism is kind of what we talked about when I said that women say that they're quote unquote dumb when it comes to this kind of stuff. And really, they're not dumb. They just, A, didn't get the education, or B, don't realize that they know a lot more than they do. And what will happen is, because they think that there are these huge chunks missing in their education on personal finance or investing or whatever it is, that they will not pursue something until they think they know everything about it. You
Dangerous.
know, you can kind of see this happen when even people who are in finance, but if they're in a very specific finance, like they're in real estate or they're in banking, or they can tend to kind of lean into that area that they know really well, because they feel like insufficient in the other areas that maybe don't touch the outside of their life. So if you have somebody in real estate, they are heavy in real estate. You're like, but what about maybe opening a, IRA or something? And it scares them to move over to that. So hopefully that helps some people, that even if people who are in finance often have these blocks that they don't want to necessarily uncover. And I think that's great about what our industry is that we're kind of generalists in some respects. Like if somebody wants to get really heavy in real estate, I'm not the one that's doing that. I'm finding them that partner for them. We're kind of that middleman pulling all their experts together, almost like a general practitioner, right? For medicine. And it really kind of helps people start by just kind of working with somebody that can help guide them to the right experts in other areas, and is always going to be there to ask the questions they don't know what to ask. Because how many times, I ask a question about a tax return or something, and they say, oh, how do I ask that? I said, just connect me, give me permission to talk, and we'll talk about it, and we'll get on a call. And, even just rolling over 401ks, they don't know what to ask. They're afraid of using the wrong language. So you get on the call with them. That's kind of what we do. So I think that perfectionism really can hold people back. But once they can just say, I don't understand it, and take some ownership of wanting to understand it. I also feel like so many people start working with an advisor and then they just kind of hand everything over to them and they say, well, she's got me. That's so dangerous. It is so dangerous to do that. Not that I'm not trustworthy, but like it's just dangerous to hand that over and not have any understanding of what's happening.
Well, okay, so I want to move into a lot more takeaways, but on 401ks, do you feel like, if they just focus on the 401k, is that enough?
For some people, I'm sure it's enough, but for other people, you have to look at what you're trying to accomplish, right? So that's the problem, is people just kind of put in their 401k and maybe they started putting 10K away, 10 years ago. They never upped it. They never did anything different. Although nowadays they have that automatic, enrollment and automatic increasing, but that's not, if you were in a 401k before, that's not pertaining to you, because they're not going to do that to you. So, they're just saving what they've been saving for 10 years. They, again, haven't looked at their account for like 5-6 years. They're just like hoping that it went up. And that's not a plan. It's not. It's like getting in the car and not having any idea where we're driving to. You're just kind of driving, which could be nice, but don't you get bored of it after a while? I mean, it's not that fun.
Right.
So I think you do have to have an idea of what we're trying to get to, what your number is. And I can tell you it's probably not $1 million on the mark. That's never been the case. I'm sure you've never seen anybody $1 million precisely is exactly what they need to retire. That's not your number. And so you've got to figure out like how much are we trying to save to? Are we retiring earlier? Like there's that whole FIRE movement that's going on, financial independence, retire early. Well, if you're putting it all in the 401k, what are you going to access if you were to retire at 55? Now we got 5 years or 4.5 years that you've got to have some money for things of that nature. So no, I don't necessarily think just saving to the 401k is going to work for everybody. I would say probably the majority of people do need some other kind of investing other places. And what that is just depends on what their situation is and what they're trying to accomplish, which as you put it, most people don't know what they're trying to accomplish. So,
yeah. Well, if the listeners remember just one thing from today, what would you hope that would be?
The bucket list planning. I hope even if I'm not involved, I hope you find something, just one thing that you're going to focus on. It keeps you focused too, so that you're not spending money on like 15 different things, right? You're focused on your one goal that you're really passionate about. You attach it to your bigger savings. It's not rocket science what I'm doing. It's super easy. I mean, somebody was asking me, what's the formula? I'm like, there's no formula. Like quarter, I don't know, put a quarter into that bucket. Like right. It's just start that. And I think that will get you moving in the right direction, because you're saving for yourself in the near future, hopefully, and in the long future, and taking care of yourself in different walks of life. I think you put it perfectly. Taking responsibility for yourself, there's nothing more empowering. I think it's just the way I think happy people tend to do that kind of stuff, and we all just want to be happy in the long run.
Yeah, that's what the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence says, doesn't it? Pursuit of happiness.
Exactly, and we're in 250 years, so
yeah. So, tell us about your free download, your Baby Step Your Way to Financial Independence.
Yeah. So it kind of goes through a bunch of different things that you can do, like looking at your credit cards. There's little baby steps that you can take that can get you to moving towards your financial freedom journey much faster. It's based off of that same whole idea of the atomic habits. Small steps equal to large leaps in the long run. And it gives you an idea of 10 of them that you can follow.
And there is, as always, there will be a fact sheet about Lisa on my website under the downloads area. And so that will be there where you can find that. But Lisa, tell them what the website is also.
Great. So it's onevisionretire.com. So we took off the Mint. So it's One Vision Retire, all spelled out. And you can find blog posts, connect to the YouTube channel that I upload videos to pretty regularly. Connect on LinkedIn, all of our stuff's there, so you can find everything there.
Awesome. Well, we have got to wrap this up today. I would just ask everyone who's listening, what's on your bucket list? Ask some good questions for yourself. Ask yourself, what is that you really want to accomplish? And hopefully you've gotten a lot out of today's look into some very important questions to ask with regards to how you want to live your life and how you want to retire. Is there anything that you'd like to wrap up with, Lisa?
No, I think that's a perfect ending, actually. I couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, thank you so much for being my guest today on the Ask Good Questions podcast. And thank you to everyone who's been listening in, and we'll see you next time.
Today's episode is over, but we did ask good questions again, didn't we? Don't miss out as we broadcast live every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time on W4CY Radio at W4CY.com. Join Benita Bell-Andersen next week for more conversations with experts on finances, retirement, behavioral finance issues, health and wellness, and more. Until then, remember to ask good questions.